Tired of serving up the same old tasteless victuals to your family? Step up your grill game with new seasonings from Cloy's Southern Eats. Based off famous Southern recipes, our seasonings will add what's been missing to your family's feast. Add it to steak, chicken, shrimp, you name it. Serving up these fixings is going to make you the hero at home. So head on over to CloysSouthernEats.com and order yours today. Come get you some.
And everybody, welcome to another edition of the Razorback Diamond Report with Dudley Dawson. I'm your host, Jason Pattyson. I want to thank our sponsor, Cloy's Southern Eats. Come rediscover the magic of Cloy's. Come get you some. You can find them at CloysSouthernEats.com and also at Amazon. And I want to thank John James for all the incredible photos that he provides us each week, and also Pixabay for the music. Dudley, my man, how's it going?
Doing good. Just got back from baseball scrimmage, and that's one of my happy places. So glad to be back out there and watching them get after it and seeing a lot of these new guys.
Yeah, it was. We were talking a little bit about it last night. You know, the early start for these scrimmages, it really is more friendly to the schedule, and as far as getting there, getting home at a decent hour.
Yeah, and they've gone 5 innings these first 2 days, and they've had pitched 10 guys each day. Let each of them throw a half inning, and they just want to get a good look at all of them. And so far, the biggest thing I see is not many walks, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of good pitch location, and that's what you want to see, especially early in these things. You might think it might come a little bit later, but it's showing early here. So I don't know that there's going to be the plethora of walks that there were, from the staff last year when you got past the main guys.
So is there anything that stuck out to you today from that scrimmage?
Well, Hudson Polk hit a 2-run homer today, and that, what was interesting about that was the first 6 guys that had come up for the Gray had gone down via strikes, 5 swinging and 1 looking. Ty Wade, the freshman from El Dorado, got a walk, and then Hudson Polk took it out of there 2-1 after Ross Lovitz, who is one of the 2 transfers from Missouri, had an RBI single to put the red on top. And then the Gray just kind of kept adding on with a lot of good base running, which was another thing you saw, and just some outstanding situational play. And then Peyton Holt hit 2 to the fence in center field, but the play of the day was his playing third base, and he's moving all over the place. There's no telling where they're going to play. They're just going to play. But he made a great play. Ball got hit off of Cooper Dawson's foot. Peyton Hope came charging in, grabbed it through the first, kind of the play of the day, and kind of set the, kind of capped things.
We were talking a little bit last night too after the football game. You were telling me that you think that Jason Jones that light has finally clicked for him a little bit. He's kind of turning that corner.
Yeah, and he's redefined his body a little bit. He did not play today. A lot more of the newcomers were in there today. As they tried these first 2 days, they may even have a scrimmage tomorrow. There's some debate. We're going to know about that sooner or later, but they're mostly going to be Fridays and Sundays. Around the obviously the Razorback football games, whether they're home or away. A lot of those people go. A lot of those same people that are at the baseball scrimmage go to the football games in terms of communications people and all that. But it's fun to get to see these guys. I'm not ready to predict they're going to be better than last year, but I do really think the pitching, just from what we've seen in that 20 arms the last 2 days, has looked really good. And I like the pitch location. I don't like a lot of walks, and I'm sure that's the same way with the pitching coach Matt Hobbs and Coach Dave Van Horn, that they're really enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you really quick, and this is just a funny side note. I mean, is there anybody on the staff that can come in there and sub for one of these catchers with going through so many pitchers?
Well, they've got 4 catchers and on the roster right now, and that's plenty. Ryder Heldrick is the kind of celebrated freshman. If he's not going to be the catcher, he's going to be in the lineup somewhere. Got a big bat. Had a hit today. But they've got plenty of catchers. I mean, I think that Parker Rowland had a hit today. Had some poke. We mentioned Ryder Helfrich. They just Peers have done a really good job at putting the roster back together after obviously 7 players left out of here either by graduation or the draft, and then you lost 7 what you thought were going to be newcomers to the roster, to the professional draft as well, and then also Craig Yoho, who really was looking forward to saying that the name all year, so I'm going to throw it in here a couple of times. Being able to he got drafted and signed a contract with he's a 24-year-old freshman, so time was waning there. He needed to get on and start his pro career. Yeah,
and that's when you hit that 24 mark, that they really stop looking at you at that point. Whenever you start getting the low A ball, and so like you said, it was time for him to really kind of get on with it. Also, check your mic there, Dudley, too. So let's kind of turn our sights a little bit to softball for a couple of minutes. Courtney Deifel and her group announced that over the weekend that they will be hosting 4 or 6 scrimmages, mostly against Razorback Elite.
What they're doing is having one scrimmage next Sunday, a 10-inning scrimmage against McLean County Community College. They'll play that at noon next Sunday. Then they're going to have 4 additional ones that they call the Razorback Unlimited, similar to what they do with the Athletes Unlimited professional softball thing, where it's a team, it's an individual thing involved in a team thing. You're trying to score points as an individual. They've been doing that, I think, since 2020, and they're going to have 4 of those. And then also they're going to a softball-a-palooza at Kansas City. The UMKC is hosting that. That's going to be a little later in October. And they hadn't announced the other teams for that, times and all that, but it might be a great time to go up to Kansas City and see a few things.
Also, make sure to follow Dudley on Twitter to get all that information, and also on hogville.net. Make sure to look for all of those stories with baseball and with softball, and he'll have all that information for you, and we'll also discuss it here on the shows as as fall kind of goes along here a little bit. I do want to throw this up there. So whenever Coach Deifel, when is have they announced when her next press conference is by chance?
No, I anticipate we'll have one before it gets going next Sunday, but for that scrimmage with McLean County comes along. But she covered a lot. I think she spent 30 minutes with us during the before they started in, and they've been doing a lot of individual workouts. That's something the NCAA allows you to do before you can bring them together really as a team. They're now into that. They'll get into the scrimmaging and be able to, kind of see. She knows she's going to be really good, and I think one of the biggest things that came out of our press conference with her, to kind of preview the fall was that she's going to have to make decisions as she goes along, and about who's going to play where. Definitely going to have Hannah Gamble at third base. It sounded like they've got a lot of catchers, a lot of outfielders, a lot of infielders. So this fall is going to give her a good idea, much like with Coach Van Horn with his new roster additions, a chance to see who can play best where and with each other, which is always a big part of it as well, chemistry both on and off the field, and being able to, if you've got they're going to be pretty locked down in the outfield, I think, with Nia Carter out there along with the two Reagans. But the infield is kind of open and a lot of options, and she smiles a lot these days.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed over from last season to this season too, you don't have Hannah Gamble having to possibly switch to catcher to be able to fill a little bit of that void, and with having a freshman catcher now, like you said, she's got some catchers now where she didn't last year, and I think it's making her life a lot easier too.
Yeah, you've got a couple returning and a couple that came in too that can play catcher, including a top 30 player that they brought in. Just a lot of roster decisions that she'll have to make. But as I said, she's smiling a lot because she knows she's got plenty of talent. And you really are going to have a situation where, this may be as important a fall as they've had in a while in terms of, kind of showing who's going to be at the forefront of things.
Mm-hmm. And that also make sure everybody to get out to those scrimmages too. They are free to the public. So be sure to look for those times at Bogle Park. And again,
noon next Sunday. And then the 4 inter-squad scrimmages, the Arkansas Unlimited, will all be at 5:30, on 4 different Saturdays through September and October.
Okay. Well, everybody make sure to get out to Bogle Park to see those. So we're going to switch tides for just a minute. We're going to go completely different sport. We're going to go to football for just a minute, just because it was something that we took in yesterday. It was a very, very hard, I wouldn't say hard fought, but it was a really kind of a grimacing win, almost 28-6 over Kent State. There's a quick photo that I want to throw up really quick. I was able to catch it. I didn't catch it the first time we saw this formation, but this formation right here, boom. When was the last time you saw the Razorbacks line up in a triple option, Dudley?
I don't know, but that's about 800 pounds back there, beyond the line of scrimmage. And, that is became important yesterday because, I don't know whether Arkansas is playing possum or the offensive line just isn't any good. It's one of those two. We're going to, start to see, I'm sure that many fans hope that they were playing possum and just, we're going to be better on the offensive line and maybe we'll be more fired up to play BYU than they were at Kent State after winning that first one so easy. But not as much push again. You had to bring in the running back. Kenny Bell, the Kent State coach, talked about how they stacked the box as well. And then Arkansas made an adjustment halftime, started using the running back really as a lead blocker to get the numbers back toward their side. And Arkansas was able to use KJ to be able, and that formation some, to be able to get the yardage that it needed. It was not an impressive performance by the offense, certainly not by the offensive line. I think you can say that both of those performances by the offensive line have been subpar to this point. Defense, I thought, played really well again. Antonio Greer, who looks like he dresses like Jack Tatum back in the day with his kind of old guy uniform stuff. But had the big play. I mean, he had more offense than Arkansas did for the longest time. In the second quarter, there was one time I looked up and there was just 14 yards total offense, 7 rushing, 7 passing. And, they've just got to be better than that. I came home last night, sat down with Patriot. We watched a lot of football. Texas, Alabama, so many of these other teams are certainly better it appears equipped to handle overmatched foes than Arkansas has been, cumulative in these first two games. I'm not sure right now what you're going to get out of this team. And I thought they would perform a little better. I mean, maybe a lot better in these first two games.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to see if there's going to be adjustments made. We're going to see if there's, is there going to be the switch up on the five offensive lineman? Who's going to play where? Is it a better situation? But you got to get it. You got to get it done pretty quickly, because you got BYU who won their game over Southern Utah yesterday. Got a little confidence, I'm sure. But you play BYU, who could beat you if you play similar to what you did this previous Saturday. And then you've got LSU, who Florida State did beat them, roughed them up in the second quarter, but they got their confidence back last night, and with 72 points, I think it was, against Grambling, and had 100 recruits there. So I'm sure that made them all feel better about what they did the previous week. Florida State may be just really, really good.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you something. You had mentioned Kenny Bell at post game yesterday. You were covering Kent State's side. Did he mention anything, what they saw, what they could exploit in Arkansas, where they were just delayed handoff after delayed handoff, and they just let those ends just run straight by them, and then they just filled the gap with the running back? Did they talk about something that was seen, that they saw on tape, that they could take advantage of?
I would say that we tried to get him to talk about that. Tried to talk a little bit about how the offense certainly was better than it was the previous week, although they had 240 yards against Central Florida and just 200 against Arkansas. But their offense certainly was better clicking in the opening half than it was there. They still have not scored a touchdown. I think now they've kicked 4 field goals in the 2 games. He seems like a really good guy. He obviously is from the PJ Fleck coaching tree. As I mentioned last week, good friends with Coach Bielema, who got it handed to him by Arkansas's Liberty Bell opponent, Kansas. But I think, he's going to get that program turned around. But as he kept saying in the second half, they're all about, getting the ball out of their hands on offense quickly. And Arkansas's defensive line and defense just dominated them in the second half. It was 111-4 in total yards offense in third quarter, and I think 247-74 in the second half is Arkansas kind of shifted to what it was doing. But they certainly tell the two halves, as he said, they certainly ran the show in the first half in terms of possession, held the ball over 20 minutes. Yeah. Then Arkansas held it over 23 minutes in the second half as they totally flipped the script with that and used their powerhouse quarterback and their running backs, to block for it.
Sam Pittman talked yesterday in his press conference that they wanted to establish the run, and finally in the fourth quarter they were able to start to get a little bit of traction. And I was looking at some of the stats. Arkansas carried the ball 26 times against Western Carolina. They carried the ball 32 times in the second half alone yesterday. And I feel like he said that they were more effective. They were starting to get the chunk plays where they were getting 4, 6, 8 yards a carry on that last drive, for instance, that last score that they made. Like you said, also they're going to have some changes. They may have some changes, they may not. I know that he kind of got that he kind of bristled at the press conference yesterday evening, because they kept asking about, hey, are we going to see some changes? And he said, I've coached, offensive line for 30 years. I'm going to handle it.
The so-called Arkansas soft media, which doesn't ask hard questions, as I've seen.
They were pricking. They were pricking.
It's pretty good. I see that all the time on Twitter or X or whatever they call it now. And on message boards, there are a lot of times, maybe they are not the questions that the fans wanted or how they wanted it presented. But, anybody with eyes could see that they're not getting the push on the offensive line. I'd be upset if he wasn't upset. He needs to snap, a couple of times, because he is the offensive line guru. Cody Kennedy has been held up as a really good offensive line coach. These first 2 games are not, computing out to the fact that that's their strong stuff. And, all they're trying to get to is an offensive line that gets a push, and they did not have that in these first 2 games enough. And yes, you can go from 2 and 3 yard runs to 5 and 6, but you need to have some 60s, 50s in there. And that hadn't been the case. I mean, really, their only long play was a flip out to a wide receiver, and he took it to the house. It is concerning. And anybody who says that it's just something they'll get over, I'm not sold on that yet. A lot of inexperienced guys, a lot of big guys. And I had said I thought that maybe this offensive line had a higher ceiling than the one last year. Certainly didn't have the experience, but they're going to have to come together, or this football team may not be playing in December.
Yeah, and that's something that I talked to Otis about a little bit too. And I said, you look at the familiarity with the fan base that they had with Sam Pittman whenever he was here first with Brett Bielema. And then you also had Dan Enos on staff too. And then you have the familiarity with him coming back. Does it almost kind of feel like the familiarity, there was already a higher ceiling of expectation when they came in that they would be able to take this group and say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to run it. And it's going to work. And you also have the younger players now. There's going to be a little bit of a growing process, but I also think that the fans need to be patient just a little bit to see if they can figure this out. Now, if they come out against BYU and they lay an egg, okay, you're going to start hitting the panic button a little bit.
Each of these three opponents, when you look at them to start the season, and I did a deep dive on all three of them to kind of see, where they were. Each one of these first three opponents has more talent and should be a better football team in the order that they were here. Western Carolina, obviously, an FCS, program. You got Kent State, who had a decent record last year, but had no starters coming back on offense and just 5 on defense. It's not. He talked yesterday about how he's not going to lose any starters on offense because none of them are seniors. I don't know if I believe that because of the transfer portal these days, but. And then BYU, which has the most talent of the three teams and has the most name recognition of those three teams. They only won their first game 14-0 over Sam Houston. As I said, lit up Southern Utah yesterday. Got a really good quarterback in Slovis, I think, and certainly has more talent than these first two teams. Arkansas had better show up ready to play from the start on this Saturday, or they'll lose. Yeah. I think that Coach Pittman summed it up best during a quote that he said yesterday. To start off the game, couldn't throw the ball, couldn't catch the ball, couldn't run the ball. And that pretty much summed it up. I mean, that's as clear as you can be. They were not able to do that, whereas Kent State was. Kent State came in ready to play, took its shot, and then Arkansas's physicality took over, and their adjustments that I talked about that they made a big difference. But that game shouldn't have been that close. 28-6 is embarrassing, when you look at the other scores around the conference who played similar teams.
So one of the things that I'm looking forward to maybe next week that you didn't quite see this week, you have a game at 6:30. You have an opportunity for fans to come and tailgate all day long. You got a game that's going to be on national television. It's going to be at night. Whenever you get those ingredients mixed into the pot of Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, it starts to have a little bit of a different feel in the air. There's a little bit more excitement. And I wonder if it's something that the players might be able to use a little bit whenever you have a couple of series. I mean, because they were at risk of going 3-and-out the first two series in a row after the second play last week where they hit the 65-yard touchdown. I think that you have the fans getting a little more juiced up for this game, it being a bigger opponent in BYU. They might be able to feed off of that, that charisma that the fans might bring on Saturday.
That's certainly a possibility. I thought yesterday's crowd reacted the way it should have because Arkansas was not giving them anything to get inspired about. I joked at halftime about how this game had turned into like a pillow fight between Grant Hall and Mike Irwin. It just did not have much excitement at all. Although I love both those guys. But it's just one of those things that the crowd didn't get into it because they were given nothing to get into. I mean, Arkansas scored a touchdown on a play where they got a delay of the game from one, then dropped the ball when it was snapped back on a bad snap, and somehow KJ went all schoolyard and they scored a touchdown. But there were so many mistakes made that didn't maybe result in penalties, but threw off the timing of everything. And it just did not look good. There's not enough positive plays going on, positive yardage plays. There's too many negative plays. Yes, Arkansas's defense had a lot to do with what happened with, as I said, in the second half, and really from the end of the second quarter on. But the offense has not been clicking yet. They've had a few big plays, but it's uninspiring to this point. And you just try to be objective about these things. And as I get older and want kids out of my yard and all, that mentality, you want to be impressed no matter who they're playing. And there have just been times right now that it's too infrequent that they should be dominating, that they're not. They're making mistakes of their own, even if penalties aren't jumping out off. Now they did, thankfully got away from the extra personal foul penalties, yesterday, which was a thing yesterday. Poop Hall came in the second half. And I will give the defense a lot of credit for keeping Kent State out of the end zone there late. They very easily could have given up a touchdown. And Poop Hall had a big tackle down there, and the defensive lineman, I thought, showed up, at the line of scrimmage there. But this is not the team that Sam Pittman wants. It's not the interior lines dominating on a consistent basis, certainly on offense. Defense a little bit more, but still I think that they want more than what they're getting. I'm sure there's going to be an interesting week of practice, I can see the head coach and the coaching staff not being very likable or whatever this week. They know that they have to focus and get these players with an edge, because they've not had it, really the first two games on a consistent basis. Although, again, I credit the defense for, maintaining the line of scrimmage a lot. It does appear to me these first two games, though, that both teams have schemed Arkansas with their sheet of plays that they come out with and kind of caught them off guard, but then the Arkansas has rebounded.
Yep. And thinking back to the last two games, you wonder if it's more, and just as me personally too, was it terminology that they weren't getting relayed correctly from sideline and then being able to take that information, process it, see what's out in front of the defense, or is it just execution alone? And I kind of think that it's more just the execution alone. And Sam kind of talked about that after the game, that the execution part, not only from the offensive line, but also from the running backs being, missing blocks. There was supposed to have been a chip on one that AJ Green missed. That's something that they really need to work on. I think personally, and I think that the coaching staff, like you said, is not going to be a fan favorite this week, because they're going to get that crap ironed out.
Well, the coaching staff gets a lot of the credit when they have success. Conversely, when they don't play up to the level that they want to, then you've got to give them the blame. And so it has to go from the head down, from the coaching staff down. I think there's plenty of culpability to go around all over the place. But I do think that, really there's going to have to be a come to Jesus meeting, maybe among the players, because you can't stand for this. There's a lot of new players. We know there's 38 different new players in here. Many of them have contributed early, but it's some guys that were returning that need to step forward, especially on that offensive line. Even if they're young, you shouldn't be getting dominated at the line of scrimmage. And I'm not acting like it was on every play, but it's been on too many plays these first two games.
It has. Well, Dudley, I'm going to get you out of here real quick, and I want to thank you for jumping on again. Everybody, you can also follow, I guess, like I said earlier, follow Dudley on Twitter at Dead Sports, and make sure to jump on hogville.net for all the stories and content for everything that we do. I want to thank Coy Southern Eats and also Pixabay, John James, and Next week, we'll be able to talk a little bit more baseball, a little bit more softball, and that's pretty much all I have. All we got. Make sure to whenever the press conferences come on, we also have those on hogville.net YouTube. So for Dudley Dawson, myself, Jason Pattyson, thank you guys and have a great evening.